Go Jackets.
What's going on, everybody? It's been a while. Welcome to WreckTalk. Got some changes here. Not doing the green screen today. I thought the stuff looked cool, so I bought it. I went to Amazon. Amazon's great. Just click buy, mail, open package. Anyways, enough about my midlife crises. Georgia Tech has hired a new DC. We've all been wondering when. When are we going to hire a new DC? The portal window's closed. We only have like one more week portal window to get people in. We desperately need linebackers. We desperately need defensive linemen. Georgia Tech has hired Tyler Santucci from Duke, a guy that learned a lot under the tutelage of Mike Elko, a guy that's one of the best defensive minds in college football right now. Just got hired by Texas A&M, which I think is a fantastic hire, by the way. Before we move on, though, I think we all have to take a moment of silence for the GOAT, the man, Saint Nick Saban, retiring from Alabama. We'll take maybe 3 seconds. 1 in 5, 1 in 5, 1 in 5. All right. Before we get into the DC hire, we've had some other hires. We've had 2 defensive staff hires. One, Jess Simpson, talked a little bit about it on the last live show. Guy that's been at Duke, been at Miami, guy that coached at Buford forever, and that's a theme you're seeing in a lot of the hires. Right, number one, a lot of these guys are younger. You don't see guys. I guess who is the guy that was co-DC? Kevin Scher. He's probably one of the older ones, but seems to be really targeted toward recruiting. A lot of guys with deep-seated Georgia recruiting backgrounds. Now, we haven't necessarily seen the payout in that. One, it hasn't been long enough. We've had a year as Key as head coach. You know, it was killer losing Greco and stuff. But I think we will see the dividends. This staff is really built, I think, very wisely, and the tip of the spear is recruiting, which is something Tech desperately needs to increase. Now, there's some off-the-field things that are going to have to happen to really jump that up. But as far as staff hires, making a bowl, on-the-field stuff, we're doing everything we can. So Jess Simpson, great hire. Defensive line guy. We all saw Tech's defense last year. We really need to take major leaps and bounds up on the defensive line. We also hire Kyle Pope, defensive line coach from Memphis, another good hire, another guy with ties, and another guy that's younger. So, unfortunately, and I'm going to link the From the Rumble Seat article that I kind of read. It's the only thing I've really looked at. I haven't looked at any videos or anyone's takes on it. I'll link that article in the description of the video because they mentioned this. It looks like Marco Coleman probably not going to be coaching at Tech next year. I don't see how we hire 2 defensive line coaches and retain Coleman. I mean, we don't need 3 unless he's a defensive analyst. You know, I've heard kind of through the grapevine, Kevin Scher probably going to, and I don't, maybe I read that in an article too, but Kevin Scher is probably going to be moved to a defensive analyst. He was really brought on for recruiting anyways. Linebackers were just flat out bad this year, like not taking shots at kids or anything like that. But you cannot deny that the linebacker play was awful. Scher was brought on as linebackers coach, then promoted to DC. So anyways, doesn't look like Marco's gonna be back. I could be wrong, but who knows? It's unfortunate. You know, he was at Tech under Collins, brought on by Collins, smelled the stink, got as far away north as he could to Michigan State. There for a year, comes back. It looks like it's not going to work out. Best of luck to him. Now, Key does have some egg on his face with that hire, with this, not with the hire, but with the position of having to hire a DC. You know, I've got pretty strong opinions on it. I don't know if other people agree. Key had the option. You know, he had the opportunity to not retain Thacker when we took the interim tag off and named him head coach, and he chose not to. Thacker was his guy. Defense was the bright spot last year, and then that flipped where the offense was the bright spot this year and the defense was just flat out awful. I mean, when you're ranked 120-something in defense, there's only 2 teams, North Texas and Louisiana Lafayette are the only 2 teams that are worse in rush defense. You know, you got to call it what it is. I mean, there's a reason we're in this position. It looks even worse that we demote Thacker midseason after the Bowling Green game. I still feel like if Key had that back to handle it differently, I think he would. And not from demoting him. I think he would still demote him. But Tantor and I have talked about on the live show. I felt like someone getting onto their kid at Kmart. Now, if you're a younger viewer, you're not going to know what Kmart is. And, like, I just feel awkward on the sideline of that Bowling Green game. Like, he rips his helmet off. He's throwing stuff at him. I agree with Tantor. He was done there. So, doesn't look good. Then you promote Scherer, and it's not really any better. So, what's the point of me saying all that? The point of me saying all that is you have to hit with these hires. The 2 we just made, and especially the DC, you have to hit with this hire. We cannot get in this cycle that is going to kill recruiting of firing defensive coordinators and firing, position coach guys that you brought on to recruit, losing recruits that they've brought on. We got to get out of that cycle. So, with that being said, Tyler Santucci. There's a lot I like, and there's one killer thing I don't like that we'll talk about. First, we'll talk about what I do like. One, he's young. He's around my age. He's 35. He's from Pennsylvania. Played at Stony Brook, and what is that? The All South Conference or Big South Conference. And for that level of play, the dude was a stud linebacker. He was All Conference Defensive Player of the Year. Played there 4 years at linebacker. Really good player. All right. Stays on as a grad assistant. Coaching linebackers, also coached defensive line for 3 years from 2010 to 2013. Then he moves on to Wake Forest. 2014, 2015, he is defensive line, linebackers grad assistant. 2016, he gets his first shot at just being a flat-out position coach. Coaches linebackers at Texas State. Then moves on to Notre Dame, where he's a defensive analyst under Brian Kelly for a year. Then moves on 2018, Texas A&M, also a defensive analyst. Comes back to Wake Forest in 2019 to be their linebackers coach. Then goes for 2 years to A&M, and then obviously follows Elko to Duke. So that's kind of the TLDR, his coaching history. Now, they note it in the From the Rumble Seat article. Everywhere he's been coaching linebackers, they've really been the shining spot of that defense. Not that he's been on like all bad defenses. That's not the case. But he got the absolute most out of linebackers. Like linebackers totaling 80, 90 tackles, 6, 7 sacks, all that. Love it. If you've been watching Tech like I play NCAA 14 where you just skip defense to play offense, linebackers, not only were they bad, not that they were bad, the position group did not play well this year, and it's the worst I've seen that position group play. I mean, even in the Colin years ever at Tech, it was not good. So it is really a breath of fresh air to see your DC coming in. I don't think there was ever a chance that the DC we brought in wasn't going to be a linebacker specialist. He is. We need it. We need it bad. So that's good. Now, the interesting thing is he actually met Elko. The first time they were on staff together was when he was a defensive analyst at Notre Dame in 2017. So he was coached under Brian Kelly. I'll tell you who else was on that staff. Tech people will know is Chip Long. He was a tight ends coach, eventually become their OC. So that's kind of some cool lore. And then obviously 2018 follows Elko as the DC at A&M and coached under Fisher. So he's coached under some good coaches like Dave Clawson. I think might be the most underrated coach in college football. I have a ton of respect for Wake Forest program. Wake Forest is really a team that's very similar to Tech. Like, they care about academics, unlike, most of the country. They tend to get or overperform the talent that they have on their roster, overperform their win-loss total. So I think it's good that he coached under Clawson. I think he learned a lot. Maybe learned what not to do under Fisher. Fisher had his heyday, but Fisher's kind of just stuck in this archaic mindset of coaching and offense that's just not going to work. And it worked so badly, they paid the highest – Texas A&M paid the highest buyout in history like 3 times over. So I like all that. And obviously, if you look at Duke's defense over the past 2 years, especially this last year Duke had the best defense in the ACC. I don't even think that that's arguable. It's certainly not arguable with stats. Really good linebacker play, nasty run defense, something that Tech sorely needs. So what's not to like with it? Well, I got a comment, actually, when I was kind of clowning North Carolina over hiring Collins, which, what do you expect? The dude is an idiot. He's a mental defective. I don't know what to tell you. And they were like, oh, your take on Santucci aged poorly. And I have to correct. He said aged quickly, which makes no sense. Like, the rate at which my takes experience time is different than other people. He meant aged poorly. Here's the thing. Unlike idiot North Carolina fans, my homerism doesn't override common sense. It doesn't override what my eyes see. The reason that I kind of dismissed Santucci on my board, he was on my board, but I didn't give it a lot of credit. And it's actually something KQ has brought up that I agree with. How much of the success, the defensive success while he was their DC at Duke, was Santucci, and how much of it was Elko? My intuition is that a lot of it was Mike Elko. Mike Elko, obviously one of the best defensive minds in the country right now. There's a reason A&M hired him. He's that good. I think if a lot of it would have been Santucci, he would have taken him with him to A&M. That's the fact that I just can't overlook. I've tried to explain it away, but it's there. And I'll ask you, tell me in the comments, why, if Elko thought he was a fantastic defensive coordinator, would he have not have taken him to A&M? Then I thought, well, maybe Santucci wanted to stand on his own and, stay at Duke and DC without Elko, but then why take the Tech job? Maybe money, I don't know. That I don't like, and I'm not changing my opinion on that. It's like Richard Pryor said, who you gonna trust, me or your lying eyes? And my lying eyes can't overlook that, right? Now, I will say this. He is a fantastic linebacker coach. He is. He's been that whether before he was with Elko and after. Now, with that being said, I don't think it's an awful hire. I don't hate the hire. I just kind of have a slight reservation with it. I'm not, over the moon with the hire. I don't, at this point, think it's a home run hire. And this is just me speculating. Now, I'm rooting for the guy. I hope he takes Tech, back to the days of the Black Watch defense, where if you were going to try and run between the tackles, you were going to get lit up. If you were running quarterback and you were going to try and take off and pick up 2 yards for a first down, you might not see the next series. I hope he takes us back to that. The other thing is he's going to have to hit the portal running. I don't know what kind of recruiter he is. I don't know any of that. I think it's good that he's young. I think that's definitely a plus for recruiting these days. But at the end of the day, I think he'll do fine. There's a little bit for him to prove to me, just as a fan. He doesn't have to prove anything to me, but for me to really be bought into he is, an A+ hire, I'm going to have to see some things on the field to prove to me that he can do it, out of Elko as DC. Another thing, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier in the video, Keys made these 2 hires without naming the DC, which is a little bit curious to me. You would think you'd want to hire your DC and then let your DC make the hires. He does need to make 2 hires. I'm sure he'll hire a linebacker coach, and we need a defensive back coach. So we're not out of the woods with, we still got to make some defensive hires. Now, at the end of the From the Rumble Seat article, they bring up what type of defense that he likes to run. And again, I don't know if that's the defense he likes to run or the defense that Elko likes to run. Maybe he likes to run another defense. I kind of hope he does. From how that article reads, he runs a 4-2-5, so 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, 5 defensive backs, which I'm actually fine with. I think we're so thin at linebacker at the moment. I'm kind of okay with having less of them on the field if that's the best way to play. Evidently, he liked to stand one of the ends up, which, if you ask me, is really a faux 3-3-5 if you don't have him with his hand on the ground, but maybe I'm an idiot. I honestly would like to see us just run a straight 4-3. I would be okay with that, a 4-3 or a 4-4, preferably a 4-3, and kind of get back to some basic footballs. They were saying maybe he'd be interested in running like a 2-4, which is basically you're playing linebackers at defensive end and walking them up and down. To me, that's just trying to outsmart the room and be a little bit too cute. I don't think we're in a position to do that. I think we need to get it down to very basic, fundamental football. And you don't hear this talked about a lot. We always talk about how offense has changed so much, in the past 5 to 10 years of college football. Really, defensive has changed just as much. It's had to keep pace, to evolve with the way offenses like to play. Like, something else no one really talks about, pretty much everyone runs a similar style of offense. Like, there's different variants of it. How many teams do you see that line up half the time under center? Georgia's probably the closest at the moment. But it'll be interesting to see what type of defense he likes to run. Does he bring that 4-2-5 to Tech? My thing is whatever works, man. I don't care. Whatever works. We need to be probably 60 spots better on defense, like ranking-wise. We need to be twice as good on defense to even be competitive. Look, the next season schedule is a little bit brutal for us. I shouldn't even say brutal. It's a lot tougher. The same defense, if we play the same defense last year, as far as like level of play on next season's schedule, we won't make a bowl. I'll just flat out tell you that. So we need to go from like 120th to at least 60th and keep pace with our offense. We'll see if Santucci can do that. We'll see who he brings in. It's going to hinge on who he can bring in at the portal. We have bled defensive linemen and linebackers out. We've brought some more linebackers in. We definitely need some defensive linemen. We'll see kind of how that shakes up in the spring. But I'm interested to see, what you guys think about this hire. Like, if I had to grade it 0 to 100, I'd probably put it at like an 80 right now. That's kind of how much the Elko not taking them things worries me. But let me know what you think. What do you think about Santucci? What do you think about Simpson and Pope that we hired? Are you excited about this year's defense? Do you think it'll be, considerably better? And if you want some more talk on this, Sunday, C-Dog and I will be going live. We'll do the Georgia Tech live show. We want to get you guys' input. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about all things Georgia Tech. And with that being said, look, guys, I'm excited. And if no one's told you today, WreckTalk loves you. Y'all have a good weekend.